Alright, today we are reading a Transcendental Diary, Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976, by Hari Sari Das. Srimad Navandam. The search is still on for a chef for the guest house. Akshayananda Swami brought a new Madhvari cook this morning, and Srila Prabhupada discussed what he wanted with the two of them before sending the man off to demonstrate what he could do. He was not prepared to allow the managers to confirm the cook's appointment before testing his ability himself. Some of his preparations were brought to Srila Prabhupada later in the day, and Prabhupada was satisfied. He said that his dishes were very palatable, and so the man was duly hired. It was a relief, the closure of another saga in the Vrindavan managerial foibles, which only Prabhupada had been able to solve. When Akshayananda Swami and the cook left Srila Prabhupada's room, I lingered a while as Prabhupada relaxed and in a warm and candid mood talked about the art of cooking. He said that by this art a man becomes the servant of a woman. Through her ability to cook, she controls these three organs, the tongue, belly, and genitals. And she also becomes subservient to the man through the satisfaction of her belly and genitals, and through the acquisition of nice ornaments, jewelry, and clothes. In this way they become servants of each other, and a very hard knot is formed, binding them to material life. Jai Gauradesh ki jai. So I heard in a story that Gaurakishordas Babaji Maharaj, he had a disciple that was getting married, and his disciple appeared before him. I'm not sure if I'm exactly right or accurate with this, but Gaurakishordas Babaji Maharaj, he told him, "You are the servant, now you have to serve her. You have to serve your wife, because she's a devotee of Krishna. So she's not here to serve you, you have to serve her." And that's the attitude we have to develop in a relationship. And that's something that people explore, but even if you're not in a relationship, ultimately, that is the attitude we have to develop in Krishna consciousness. This attitude of service to others is very important. And if you happen to be in a relationship, it's important to remember that you are actually a servant, and the person in the relationship that you are with is the person you are supposed to serve. Whether you are the man or the woman, or however it may work out, you have to serve that person. Not that you are served by them, or that you have a relationship of mutual exploitation. The relationship is meant for service, and the relationships we form in Krishna consciousness are meant for service. Service relationships, because that trains us to return to our original position as servants of Krishna, because we are actually serving the devotees of Krishna. That's the mood of a devotee. And Lord Caitanya has given us, by his own example, that he says he's not a Brahmin, or a Kshatriya, or a Vaishya, or a Sudra, or a Brahmachari, or a Grihastha, or a Vanaprastha, or a Sannyasi. That he is simply the servant, as the maid servants of the gopis, or servants of Krishna. Gopi Bhakti Padakamalaya Dasa Dasa Das. And therefore, if there's nothing to be said, I would just read Srimad Bhagavatam now. Thank you very much.
Sorry, you mentioned the disciple of Gauradesh Babaji. Gauradesh Babaji had only one disciple.
Maybe then it was somebody who is going to Gauradesh Babaji Maharaj to seek blessings or something.
It was only Basanta Saraswati was his disciple.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 5. The Creative Impetus. Chapter 1. The Activities of Maharaj Priyabrata. Verse 31. Yeva uha tadhrata chalananemi krita parikataste sapta sindhava asanyata eva kritaha sapta bhuvo dvipaha. Ye, that. Va, uha, certainly. Tat ratha, of his chariot. Chalana, of the wheels. Nemi, by the rims. Krita, made. Parikataha, trenches. Te, those. Sapta, 7. Sindhavaha, oceans. Asan, became. Yataha, because of which. Eva, certainly. Kritaha, were made. Sapta, 7. Bhuvaha, of the Bhu Mandala. Dvipaha, islands. Translation. When Priyabrata drove his chariot behind the sun, the rims of his chariot wheel created impressions that later became 7 oceans, dividing the planetary system known as Bhu Mandala into 7 islands. Purport. Sometimes the planets in outer space are called islands. We have experience of various types of islands in the ocean. And similarly, the various planets, divided into 14 lokas, are islands in the ocean of space. As Priyabrata drove his chariot behind the sun, he created 7 different types of oceans and planetary systems, which altogether are known as Bhu Mandala or Bhu Loka. In the Gayatri mantra, we chant Om Bhur Bhuvaha Svatat Savitur Varenyam. Above the Bhu Loka planetary system is Bhuvar Loka, and above that is Svarga Loka, the heavenly planetary system. All these planetary systems are controlled by Savita, the sun god. By chanting the Gayatri mantra, just after rising early in the morning, one worships the sun god. I'm going to read more. Verse 32. Jambu Plaksha Salmali Kusa Krancha Saka Pushkara Sangyas Parimanam Purvasmad Uttara Uttaro Yatha Sankyam Dvi Guna Manena Bahihi Samantata Upakliptaha Translation. The names of the islands are Jambu, Plaksha, Salmali, Kusa, Krauncha, Saka, and Pushkara. Each island is twice as large as the one preceding it, and each is surrounded by a liquid substance, beyond which is the next island. Purport. The ocean in each planetary system has a different type of liquid. How they are situated is explained in the next verse. Ksharodekshu rasoda suroda gritoda kshiroda dadhi mandoda sudho daha sapta jaladhayaha sapta dvipa parikha ivabhyantara dvipa samana ekaikasyena yatanupurvam saptas api bahir dvipeshu pritak parita upakalpitas teshu jamv adishu barhishmati patir anuvratanatmajan agni tre majiva yagyabahu hiranyareto grita prishta medhatiti vitihotra sangyan yata sankyenai kai kasmin ekam evadhi patim vidadhe. Translation. The 7 oceans respectively contain salt water, sugarcane juice, liquor, clarified butter, milk, emulsified yogurt, and sweet drinking water. All the islands are completely surrounded by these oceans, and each ocean is equal in breadth to the island it surrounds. Maharaj Priyabrata, the husband of Queen Barhishmati, gave sovereignty over these islands to his respective sons, namely Agnidra, Idmajiva, Yagyabahu, Hiranyareta, Gritaprishta, Medhatiti, and Vitihotra. Thus they all became kings by order of their father. Purport. It is to be understood that all the dvipas, or islands, are surrounded by different types of oceans. And it is said herein that the breadth of each ocean is the same as that of the island it surrounds. The length of the oceans, however, cannot equal the length of the islands. According to Viraraghava Acharya, the breadth of the first island is 100,000 yojans. 1 yojan equals 8 miles, and therefore the breadth of the first island is calculated to be 800,000 miles. The water surrounding it must have the same breadth, but its length must be different. All right, there's a little bit of math in there. So, well, I just make a short comment here that Maharaj Priyabrata, he delegated authority of governance of these islands to his sons. So what does that mean? That means that he had Krishna conscious children. It means that they were qualified to manage the affairs of these, to govern and rule over these islands. Now, in this Kali Yuga, of course this is very ideal, but we have the experience that in Kali Yuga, this isn't always working out. The experience is that the children are not always following in the footsteps of their parents. And that can be attributed to different causes, But one cause is not performing the proper samskara for having children. Garbhodhan samskara. So when the process of begetting a child is performed, the child, the spirit soul, the living entity, is attracted by the consciousness of the parents at the time of conception. And what that means is that this is actually like a yajna. It's like a yajna. The act of conception is actually like a yajna. Like when you're chanting your rounds, you want to attract Krishna, or you want to clear the consciousness, or whatever it may be. But the whole day that precedes or that follows from the chanting, the whole morning program we have is very nice. The chanting, Mangalartik, this whole morning program, the ganzen Morgen program, bereitet us für die ganzen Tag vor. It prepares us for the whole day. And the day is long, right? And so similarly, when the act of creation, or creating, right? Conception, this act of conception in creating our giving facility for a living entity to assume a human form of life, the whole span of that child's life is greatly affected by the consciousness of the parents in conception. And the consciousness should not be one of enjoyment, because then you will attract a living entity that's overwhelmed by desire for material enjoyment. But that's kind of very difficult, because conception is such a materially enjoyable activity. Prabhupada explains it's because of the coating on the genital that creates a sensation which is very materially pleasurable, and which comes close to equaling the sensation of pure devotional service. So this act of conception has to be performed with planning and great concentration. I don't know how many people this is relevant for, but that's the purpose here I want to communicate. Is that if you want to have children who are devotees of Krishna, who follow in your footsteps, then are just people that contribute to society. You have to place emphasis on consciousness at the time of conception. At least that much should be there. And then of course there's so much more which I don't have any practical experience with, so I won't speak further. I'm only repeating, I don't have any practical experience at all really practically with this. And then verse number 35. I'll just read the translation. King Priyabrata then gave his daughter Urjasvati in marriage to Sukra Acharya, who begot in her a daughter named Devayani. Verse 35. My dear king, a devotee who has taken shelter of the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord can transcend the influence of the 6 material whips, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death, and he can conquer the mind and 5 senses. However, this is not very wonderful for a pure devotee of the Lord, because even a person beyond the jurisdiction of the 4 castes, in other words, an untouchable, is immediately relieved of bondage to material existence if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. So this is a conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. That's why that my dear king, I must be Maharaj Parikshit, right?
Yes.
right? Because when we hear this, it's in the second person. The story of Priyabrata Maharaj is in the second person, a third person. He did this, they did that.
In the beginning of purport of Padma, Maharaj praise.
So purport. This is a nice purport. It's long. They're all nice. This one's long. And purport by His Divine Grace of Vaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sukadev Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit about the activities of King Priyabrata. And since the king might have had doubts about these wonderful, uncommon activities, Sukadev Goswami reassured him, "My dear king," he said, "don't be doubtful about the wonderful activities of Priyabrata. For a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is possible because the Lord is also known as Urukrama. Urukrama is a name for Lord Ramana, who performed the wonderful act of occupying the three worlds with 3 footsteps. Lord Ramana requested 3 paces of land from Maharaj Bali. And when Maharaj Bali agreed to grant them, the Lord immediately covered the entire world with 2 footsteps. And for his 3rd step, he placed his foot upon Bali Maharaj's head. Sri Jaydev Goswami says, Chalayasi Vikramane Balim Adbhuta Vamana, Paranaka Nira Janita Janapavana, Keshavadrita Vamana Rupa, Jaya Jagadish Hare. All glories to Lord Kesava, who assumed the form of a dwarf. O Lord of the universe, who takes away everything inauspicious for the devotees. O wonderful Vamanadev, you tricked the great demon Bali Maharaj by your steps. The water that touched the nails of your lotus feet when you pierced through the covering of the universe purifies all living entities in the form of the river Ganga. So the Supreme Lord is all-powerful. He can do things that seem wonderful for a common person. Similarly, a devotee who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord can also do wonderful things, unimaginable to a common man. By the grace of the dust of the lotus feet. Caitanya Mahaprabhu therefore teaches us to take shelter of the lotus feet, of the Lord's lotus feet. Ai nanda tanu jakikaram pati tangmam vishame bhahamudam. Kripaya tava para pankaja stita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya. O son of Nanda Maharaj, I am your eternal servant. Yet, somehow or other, I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Lord Caitanya teaches us to come in touch with the dust of the Lord's lotus feet, for then there will undoubtedly be all success. Because of the material body, every living entity in material existence is always disturbed by Sad Guna, 6 whips: hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, invalidity, and death. Furthermore, another Sad Guna are the mind and 5 sense organs. Not to speak of a sanctified devotee, even a Chandala, an outcast, who is untouchable, is immediately freed from material bondage if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. Sometimes caste Brahmanas argue that unless one changes his body, he cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. For since the present body is obtained as a result of past actions, one who has, in the past, acted as a Brahmana takes birth in a Brahmana family. Therefore, they contend, without such a Brahminical body, one cannot be accepted as a Brahmana. Herein it is said, however, that even Vidura Vigata, a Chandala, a 5th class untouchable, is free if he utters the holy name even once. Being free means that he immediately changes his body. Sanatana Goswami confirms this. Yata Kanchanatang yati kangsyang rasa vidhanataha tata diksha vidhanena dvijatvam jayate nrinam. When a person, even though a chandala, is initiated by a pure devotee into chanting the holy name of the Lord, his body changes as he follows the instructions of the spiritual master. Although one cannot see how this body has changed, we must accept, on the grounds of the authoritative statements of the Shastras, that he changes his body. This is to be understood without arguments. This verse clearly says, Sajahati bandham. He gives up his material bondage. The body is a symbolic representation of material bondage according to one's karma. Although sometimes we cannot see the gross body changing, chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord immediately changes the subtle body, and because the subtle body changes, the living entity is immediately freed from material bondage. After all, changes of the gross body are conducted by the subtle body. After the destruction of the gross body, the subtle body takes the living entity from his present gross body to another. In the subtle body, the mind is predominant, and therefore, if one's mind is always absorbed in remembering the activities or the lotus feet of the Lord, he is to be understood to have already changed his present body and become purified. Therefore, it is irrefutable that a chandala, or any fallen or low-born person, can become a Brahmana simply by the method of bona fide initiation. Among jnana timirandasya penanjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitanyena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Caitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dati Swaparam. Okay, so what do we have here today? So the first thing that's spoken about, or emphasized rather, is that the devotee of the Lord can perform activities which are like miracles, inconceivable. And that really is a wonderful, wonderful way to enter into a discussion on the Bhagavatam, because how is that possible? How is that possible that the devotee of the Lord can perform activities which are miraculous? That's possible actually only via the parampara system. Because when the, right, if anybody wants to become empowered, right, look at the power that Priyabrata Maharaja had. And if anybody wants to become empowered, the very simple method is to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Because in following the instructions of the spiritual master, with those instructions are transmitted all the power to carry them out. And it's said that one who has implicit faith in the orders of the spiritual master, for that person, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So what's required then is faith. Faith in the process. Faith in the process. That we have to have faith in the process. And the only way to have faith in the process is, one is to associate with other people who have faith in the process, but also to inquire submissively and to apply the process. When we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we are associating with Srila Prabhupada. When we read his purports, the Bhaktivedanta purports, we are associating with Srila Prabhupada. And he performed miracles, miraculous things which are inconceivable, and he has firm faith in the Lord. But it's not enough just to read, we have to also apply the teachings. This is very important. To apply, to assimilate by experience. And that's the secret of Krishna consciousness. Is a really wonderful little gift. That if you have a little bit of faith, there are examples of Dhruva Maharaj. He had just a little bit of faith in the words of his mother, and he went into the forest and started meditating. So this is very important. Faith is obviously very important. Faith is strengthened by realization. But realization only comes by faith and by application. You have to apply. So when you say that we have faith in something, it should be reflected on our activities, the way that we behave. Because faith is something that is hidden. Otherwise, it's hidden from view. I cannot understand the faith of another person, how much they believe in the process they are following. But I can get an idea by their activities, by their actions. So really this is about application. About applying the instructions of the spiritual master and then getting the result. And then faith is becoming stronger. And also submissive inquiry. Because spiritual life is a journey into the heart that we don't usually go. We haven't really. That's why we apply the process and we go there. But before that, we don't remember having gone on that journey. And so there are things we will see which you don't understand. There are, and analogously, rooms we will walk into, tools we will find we don't know how to use, places we have never been, things we don't understand. And that's why it's important to have submissive inquiry. And that submissive inquiry doesn't just happen in Bhagavatam lecture. It's something that goes on in the heart. Because to inquire requires humility. It means you accept that you do not know. And so you have to have this mood of inquiry. And because the spiritual master is the Choita Guru, the personality of Godhead, Paramatma is also within the heart, will recognize and see the mood of humility and the spirit of inquiry and will deliver to you answers to your questions. In Bali Maharaj, he was willingly tricked into giving away everything he had. So this is actually a really nice example of surrender. Bali Maharaj was fighting with the demons and he worked really hard to acquire all the 3 planetary systems. He worked very hard to acquire all the planetary systems. And Lord Ramana approached him and he knew it was the personality of Godhead. He knew this must be the personality of Godhead. He could understand it. He's a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. He knew it. And then Bali Maharaj, Vamana Dev took all the 3 planetary systems with 2 steps. And then he asked Bali Maharaj where he could put his 3rd step, and Bali Maharaj offered his head. So what does that mean? There's actually a lot of ways we can understand this, but it means that he gave everything. So really, to get the mercy of the Lord, and then of course he got the mercy of the Lord. He was tied up, but then he got the mercy. I don't know, somehow, I don't know how it goes, but he got he got that result we're looking for. But he gave up all of his, plans, his ambitions, his desires. He was going to enjoy the 3 planetary systems. He must have been pretty ambitious to fight a war with the demigods and win. And he gave it all up to please the Lord. So we also have to follow like that. We have to give up all of our ambitions. Prabhupada wanted to make a lot of money to serve Krishna. And he was on the path for that. He had a successful pharmacy. He was doing well. He talks that he had good prospects. But Krishna took all of that away from him. and made him a great devotee. He was always a great devotee, but he empowered him to perform great acts that are inconceivable, materially inconceivable. But he took everything away from him. Bali Maharaj had everything taken away from him. So when we want to become empowered by Krishna, we have to give up everything. And if you're sincerely wanting to be empowered by Krishna, don't worry, he will take it away. And that might be frustrating. I was reading just yesterday in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. I tell you, the first two cantos are wonderful books. So much. I'm reading now the second canto. I just started, or actually I will start. Well, I read the first verse today. And anyway, but I was reading the first canto. In Prabhupada's purport, he says that he gives the example of Maharaj Parikshit because it was the end of the first canto. That's why I'm in the second canto today, because yesterday was the end of the first canto. And Maharaj Parikshit, he was a devotee of the Lord from birth. He saw the Lord in the womb of his mother. And Krishna made an arrangement for him to go back to Godhead quickly, in 7 days. But he took everything from him. He took all of his wonderful opulence. He was king of the world. And Krishna, he said, now you've got to give it all up. So that's the mercy of the Lord on his devotee. He takes everything from him or her and forces them to get ready to go back to Godhead. Gives them no option but to focus on devotional service. And so that's what we can learn from Maharaj Parikshit, but also Vamanadev, in the example of Bali Maharaj, he had to give up everything. He gave in charity to a Brahmin 3 sets of land, and there was nothing left in the whole material universe for Vamanadev to place his foot, so he gave him on his head, in the head, like that. Right. Okay. Okay, this is another verse, very nice. and then we have this wonderful Shikshashtakam, which we are chanting every morning. And these are prayers by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And we chant them every morning, not so that we can become scholars and know them, but the idea is to enter into the mood of these prayers. Right? I have no taste for them. Right? Nam namakari bahuda nijasava shakti. Anyway, the last part is this: your names are glorious, but I have no attraction for them. That's humility. And then the verse about humility, let me just become a servant. And then I don't want anything, I just want to be your servant. And then, please place me as an atom at your lotus feet. So this is very nice prayer. I am your eternal servant. So I'm acknowledging I am your eternal servant. But somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. So that's like acknowledging our position. It's important to acknowledge our position. This is also humility. Humility is so important, and as we advance in Krishna consciousness, it actually comes naturally. Because we see how much we are forgetful of Krishna. Sometimes I really love to wash dishes. And I'll tell you something happens when you're washing a pan that is burnt really badly. As you scrub, all you see is darkness, so you can't differentiate. It looks like it's all the same. You don't really notice how dirty it is, because it's all black. But when you start to see a little bit of shiny metal, then you realize a little bit more how black it is. So that's how this Krishna consciousness is working. As we clean the heart, similarly, it's like analogous, right? As we're cleaning, when we start to actually make progress in the cleaning process, then we realize just how dirty our heart is. Right? Because until then, we don't see. We aren't able to differentiate. This is actually interesting because the power of seeing form, right, is there because of color. We are able to distinguish form because of color. That's in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. It's like 26th chapter. The color enables us to see differentiation in form. So if the whole pan is black, and if your whole heart is dirty, you don't really realize how dirty it is. You don't see, you're not able to distinguish how clean it could be. But when you start to clean a little bit, then you're able to see, oh wow, it's pretty dirty. So that's why, it kind of contributes to that natural humility. And devotees has this kind of natural humility. They don't have to pretend. It's something that happens naturally. Through the cleaning process. So, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. So it's very important to acknowledge our position. And it's very easy to forget our position. It's very easy to think that, I'm studying, I'm reading every day, and I wake up early, I chant my rounds in the morning early, I must be something special, right? It's very easy to forget that actually being here means not special, means fallen, somehow or other. How did it happen? I don't know. That I have become fallen into this ocean of birth and death. I've been kind of like mesmerized by the phantasmagoria of the glittering lights of its material nature, so much that it occupies my mind, like a lot. But please, place me as an atom at your lotus feet. So what is an atom? An atom is very small, insignificant atom. Where? Not anywhere but at the bottom. So this is how we get close to Krishna, with humility and without expectation that is grandiose, no images of grandeur, visions of grandeur. Right. Okay, in the next part, every living entity in material existence is always disturbed by Shad Guna, 6 whips, hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, invalidity, and death. And another 6 whips, Prabhupada mentions, are the mind and the 5 sense organs. Okay. All right. What's very interesting here is that not to speak of a sanctified devotee, even a Chandala, an outcast who is untouchable, is immediately freed from material bondage if he utters the holy name of the Lord even once. So I was chanting for 2 hours this morning. What happened? Where did I go wrong with that? But so with, also there's this verse in the Brahma, in the Bhagavad Gita, Mangcha Yogya Vicharina Bhakti Yogana Sevati. Mangcha Yogya Vicharina means devotional service in full. So how do we find relief from these 6 whips, and how do we find relief from the dictations of the mind? Is by taking full shelter of the holy name, and full shelter of the devotional service. And the example is given also of Ambarish Maharaj, who always was engaging his senses and serving the Lord. So, now I'm going to walk to the place of pilgrimage. So, paying attention to my legs in my act of service and walking to the place of pilgrimage. Right? So now I'm going to honor prasadam. So this is a service. I don't want to space out. I'm serving the Lord. I'm conscious of the taste. I'm purifying my senses. So consciousness, Prabhupada said consciousness, first you have to become conscious, then you can become Krishna conscious. So we have to really, it's a lot of hard work to practice Krishna consciousness. Because you have to be always alert, on guard, and focusing, bringing the mind back, not just while you're chanting, not just during Mangalarti, not just while you're reading, but throughout the whole day, and eventually while you're sleeping also. Bringing the mind back to Krishna consciousness. And taking shelter of Krishna consciousness, taking shelter of Krishna by remembering Him in full, that's what it means. All your senses and the mind are engaged in devotional service. And you don't fall down under any circumstances. So when you're chanting around and you hear a loud noise, you're not distracted. You're still engaged in Krishna consciousness. You engage your tongue in moving and making the sound vibration. You engage your ears in hearing the sound vibration. And you just become purified like that. So we really, it's really not easy. I find it even more and more difficult all the time. So much demand is being placed on the living entity as they move closer to Krishna. But it's okay, I don't mind, I'm not complaining. But we have to recognize that. And we have to be very vigilant in Krishna consciousness. At least more vigilant today than we were yesterday. At least there should be steady progress. Oh, this is also very interesting. I'm not sure if it's in scripture somewhere that this is said, but where this idea comes from, that a Brahmana takes birth in a Brahmana family. Maybe I won't comment on that because it's already been commented on, and also there's Chaturvarnyam Mayashrishtam, there's no mention of Janma in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita where it talks about the 4 varnas and ashrams. But better be safe than make a mistake, and I won't say what I have in mind because I don't know for certain. I remember that the living entity is attracted by the consciousness at the time of conception, but I don't know where I've read that. Is it second canto? So it's there. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I can make a little comment here. And I don't know where the idea that a Brahmin appears in the Brahmin family. Because according to the second canto, the living entity is attracted by the consciousness at the time of conception. So, if a person is with the spirit of enjoyment, even though they may be assuming the duties of a Brahmin, they can attract to them a personality, a living entity who in the previous birth was not a Brahmin. And so this idea of this caste system, but then it says also that, but also, even if it does happen that way, even a low-class personality can be brought to the higher culture by the process of devotional service. Okay. All right, I'm going to actually open up for questions and comments. Mm-hmm.
I have one technical question for discuss.
Right.
A little funny about oceans. These oceans, wine, milk. Why this is not spoiled?
I'm sorry, sir?
Why this oceans, milk oceans, is not spoiled?
Well, you see, when we think of milk, we think of it in our material conception, our conception of the milk in this world, in this planetary system. And in this planetary system, there are certain prevailing conditions of the material nature that cause milk to spoil if it's left out. Actually, it doesn't spoil. I think it turns into yogurt. But we don't understand the material conditions that are present on these other lokas. It's a different place. We don't have material experience of it. At least not in our memory. And so to speculate about that might not be very fruitful. Because we don't have enough information. Because we're limited and conditioned. And it's not, only so much information is given in Bhagavatam.
This is not problem to say.
But thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am.
Lord Caitanya is praying to become an atom at the lotus feet of the Lord. What can you do for seva as an atom at the lotus feet? How can you serve the Lord as an atom?
Well, right. So what is being prayed for here is to be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, but to be very insignificant. Insignificant. I'm your eternal servant, and I'm an insignificant servant. If I could just have a place next to you, so that I can always remember you, always be near to you, in whatever capacity you want me to be, even if it's an atom at the lotus feet, if your lotus feet are a particle of dust. If that's what pleases you, it's all right. But we might be thinking, oh, let me be a great something, mridanga player, Don't fool yourself here. Easy now. Just relax. But that might indicate then a little bit of pride. And that's not wanted in the spiritual world. Krishna, of course, can take an atom and a dust at Lotus feet and can make it do wonderful things because he's inconceivable. He's do anything. But so this mood of let me come close to you, but let me come very insignificantly close to you. That's how I would and that's how I'm answering this question. Let me approach you, please, but let me do so insignificantly, because I have no good qualities. I'm just like a particle of dust at your lotus feet. I would like to be, because I have no qualities. Whatever qualities I have, they would come from you. Please, just make me something insignificant. But can I just be next to you? I wash the dishes. I don't mind. Clean the toilet with a toothbrush. It's okay. If I can remember you, then everything is okay. All right. Thank you very much. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
It's one form of life. Different persistence, different form of life. It's area. And current planets, there's not spawning how to say, usually in our place, if you put milk, then next day it's spoiled, or Gauradesh, Europe. And in our planets, of course, by influence this microbes, bacteria, but we get old, it's spoiled too. But higher planets is not old age. There is atmosphere more fresh. And this form of life, like microbes, bacteria, not exist there.
That's like okay.
Yeah, therefore, this milk was spoiled because there's not this form of life.
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting.
It's logical, yeah?
Well, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speculate though, because it's like I don't have experience with it. I hear what you're saying.
I don't know
That's
from where
interesting.
it's just
Yeah, that's
logical.
logical. Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Because this is quite a hellish form of life.
Yeah, right.
This
Yeah. And they wouldn't be present in heavenly planet. That makes sense. Yeah.
Worm, this microbe, it's like worms, this hellish form of life.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.